I want to ask you a question before we do anything else in this video. And I want you to answer it honestly. Not to me, but to yourself. How many hours have you been sitting today? Not counting sleep. Just waking hours, in a chair, on a couch, in a car, at a table, in a recliner. Add it up as best you can. If the answer is more than 5 hours, I need you to watch this video carefully. If the answer is more than 8 hours, this video is urgent. Not in a frightening way, not in a way that should cause you to panic or rush to your doctor, but in the way that important information is always urgent, because knowing it sooner rather than later protects you. My name is Sandra Whitmore. I am a certified physical therapist, and for more than 2 decades, I have been helping people over 60 understand and address the circulatory consequences of modern sedentary life. And the single most consistent finding of my career is this: the amount of time you spend sitting each day is one of the most powerful predictors of whether you will develop leg swelling, venous insufficiency, and the cascade of problems that follow from them. More powerful in many cases than your age, more powerful than whether you smoke, more powerful than your genetics. The sitting itself is the variable. Today, I want to explain exactly why that is true, and then I want to give you a specific protocol to counteract it. Let me start with a patient. His name was Frank. He was 66 years old, a recently retired high school principal who had spent 35 years on his feet, walking hallways, supervising classrooms, attending sporting events, constantly in motion. He was proud of his activity level. He did not think of himself as someone who needed to worry about circulation. And then he retired. And for the first time in his adult life, he had nowhere he needed to be, and no particular reason to move. He started his days reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. He moved to his home office to manage some personal finances and correspondence. He had lunch. He watched the afternoon news. He read more. He had dinner with his wife. He watched more television. He went to bed. Within 4 months of retiring, Frank's legs were swollen every evening. Not dramatically, not painfully, but visibly, consistently, in a way that worried his wife and confused him because he felt, he said, like he was not doing anything differently. His doctor recommended compression socks. They helped somewhat. His doctor also said, try to move around more. Frank was not sure what that meant. He came to see me. I asked him to describe a typical day. Then I asked him to estimate how many steps he took. He thought about it and said, maybe 1,000? Maybe 2,000 on a good day? For context, a retired person who is not deliberately exercising often falls in the range of 2,000 to 4,000 steps daily. Frank was at the lower end even of that reduced range. But the more important number, the one that explained his swelling, was not his step count. It was his consecutive sitting time. He was sitting for stretches of 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours without getting up at all. And during those stretches, the venous pump in his legs, the calf muscle system that is supposed to push blood back up toward his heart, was essentially switched off. Let me explain the physiology of this with some specificity, because I think the specifics are what make this real. When you sit still, your calf muscles are relaxed. The veins in your lower legs are not being squeezed. The one-way valves in those veins, the valves that prevent blood from falling back down toward your feet, are not being activated by any external pressure. Blood accumulates below those valves. The hydrostatic pressure inside the veins increases, and when venous pressure exceeds a certain threshold, fluid begins to move outward through the vein walls and into the surrounding tissue. Initially, this happens at the capillary level, small amounts of plasma crossing into the interstitial space. But over hours of continued sitting, the effect compounds. By evening, what started as microscopic fluid shifts has accumulated into the visible, palpable swelling you see at your ankles. Now, the critical thing to understand about this process is its time dependence. The first 30 minutes of sitting does relatively little damage. The first hour is manageable. It is the continuous sitting beyond 90 minutes to 2 hours that produces the most significant pressure changes and the most fluid accumulation. There is research showing that venous blood flow velocity decreases by roughly 50% during prolonged sitting compared to standing, and that this decrease is largely reversed within minutes of resuming activity. That means the solution to Frank's problem was not to exercise more in the mornings. It was to interrupt his sitting every 60 to 90 minutes with brief bouts of movement. Enough movement to activate the calf muscle pump, restore venous flow velocity, and prevent the hours-long pressure accumulation that was producing his swelling. Frank understood this immediately when I explained it. He was an administrator. He understood systems, and he understood process control. He said, "So the sitting time is the variable I need to manage, not the total exercise dose." I said, "Exactly right." He said, "Give me a protocol." I gave him one. Here is the protocol I gave Frank, and the one I want to give you today. I call it the 60-minute rule. Every 60 minutes of sitting, you take a movement break of at least 2 minutes. Not a walk, not a workout, just 2 minutes of targeted leg movement. The specific movements that matter most are the ones that most directly activate the calf muscle pump. Let me go through them. The first is the standing calf raise. If you can stand safely, you hold the back of your chair for support. Rise up onto the balls of your feet. Hold for 2 seconds and lower back down. 15 repetitions. This is the single most effective 1-minute circulation intervention I know of. When you raise your heels and press onto the balls of your feet, you create a powerful contraction of both the gastrocnemius and the soleus, the 2 calf muscles. That contraction squeezes your leg veins forcefully, pushes a bolus of blood upward through the venous valves, and then, on the lowering phase, allows the veins to refill with fresh blood from below. 15 repetitions takes about 45 seconds and produces a measurable and immediate increase in venous flow that lasts for several minutes afterward. If standing calf raises are not accessible for you because of balance concerns or lower leg pain, the seated version, pressing your toes into the floor and lifting your heels, produces a similar, though somewhat less forceful effect and is appropriate for almost everyone. The second movement in the 60-minute protocol is the knee bend series. From a standing position, holding the back of your chair, you perform 10 mini squats. You do not need to go deep, just a few inches of bend at the knee, enough to require your quadriceps and glutes to engage. These larger muscle groups, when they contract, create venous compression throughout the entire leg, not just the calf. And they also produce a brief cardiovascular stimulus, a small increase in heart rate that tells your whole circulatory system that something active is happening. If squatting is not appropriate for your knees, marching in place for 30 seconds, lifting your knees to hip height alternately, produces a similar whole leg circulatory stimulus. The third movement is what I call the heel-toe walk. You walk 10 to 15 steps forward, then 10 to 15 steps back, deliberately exaggerating the push-off from your toes as you walk. Each exaggerated push-off creates a strong calf contraction that drives the venous pump. This is more effective than regular walking at the same pace because the exaggerated push-off recruits more of the calf muscle with each step. Those 3 movements, calf raises, knee bends, and heel-toe walk, performed once every 60 minutes, constitute the core of the 60-minute protocol. Total time per session, 2 minutes. Total time per day, assuming 10 waking sitting hours, 20 minutes. 20 minutes of movement distributed across your day, and your venous pump gets activated roughly 10 times instead of 0. Frank started this protocol the week after our session. He set a repeating alarm on his phone for every 60 minutes. He called each alarm his circulation check. Within 10 days, he reported that his evening ankle swelling had reduced visibly. Within 3 weeks, his wife confirmed it. Within 6 weeks, Frank told me his legs felt like the legs he remembered having before retirement. Not the legs of a 30-year-old, he was careful to say, but his legs. Active, functional, not aching, not swollen, not sending him signals he did not know how to answer. He also told me something else that I want to pass on to you. He said the movement breaks were not the inconvenience he had expected them to be. He said that after the first week, when they had become habitual, he actually noticed their absence on the days when he missed a few. He said his legs started reminding him. The familiar heaviness would return, and he would realize it had been 90 minutes since he last moved. And the moment he did his calf raises and his knee bends, the heaviness would ease within minutes. That is the body's responsiveness in action. Once you start giving it what it needs, it starts asking for it. The feedback loop turns positive. Now let me address a few additional strategies that compound the effect of the 60-minute protocol. The first is morning preparation. What you do in the first 30 minutes after waking sets the tone for your leg circulation for the entire day. When you have been lying down all night, blood has been distributed more evenly through your body, and your venous valves have not been under the sustained pressure of the dependent position. This is why morning is the best time to establish circulation through movement before you commit to your first sitting session. Before you sit down for breakfast, do the following: 20 seated ankle pumps, 15 heel raises, 10 standing calf raises if accessible. Walk to the kitchen and back twice with exaggerated push-off. This takes 3 minutes. It activates your calf muscle pump at the start of the day when it is most responsive, and it sets a baseline of better venous tone that persists through the first couple of hours of your morning. The second additional strategy is evening recovery. The goal in the evening is to reverse the fluid accumulation that has occurred throughout the day. 2 interventions work best for this. The first is leg elevation. Lie on your bed or recline on your couch with your feet elevated above the level of your heart, at least 6 inches, ideally higher. Do this for 15 to 20 minutes. During this time, do gentle ankle pumps every few minutes to keep the calf muscles engaged while gravity assists the return flow. The combination of elevation plus active pumping drains the accumulated fluid from your lower legs significantly more effectively than either alone. The second evening intervention is the lower leg massage. Using both hands, apply firm upward strokes along the lower leg, from ankle to knee. Press firmly along the inner calf. Squeeze and release the calf muscles gently with both hands. Work for 3 to 5 minutes per leg. This manual compression mimics the muscular action that drives venous return and adds a direct lymphatic drainage component. Dorothy was a patient I introduced to the evening recovery routine after she had plateaued on the daytime protocol alone. She was 71, a former school teacher, and her swelling was responding to the 60-minute rule, but not resolving completely. When she added the evening elevation and massage, she described the results as transformative. She said she woke up every morning with the slimmest ankles she had had in years. She said she felt like she was giving her legs a gift every evening before bed. I think that is a lovely way to think about it. Not a chore. Not a medical obligation. A gift to legs that carry you through your day and deserve the attention. Let me give you the full daily structure one more time. Morning. 3 minutes of activation exercises before your first sitting session. Ankle pumps, heel raises, brief walk with exaggerated push-off. Daytime. The 60-minute rule, every hour without exception. 2 minutes of calf raises, knee bends, and heel-toe walk. Evening. 15 to 20 minutes of leg elevation with active ankle pumps. 3 to 5 minutes of lower leg massage on each leg. That is your complete protocol. It addresses the 3 phases of the problem: morning preparation, daytime interruption of sitting, and evening recovery. It is based on physiology. It works. And it requires no equipment, no fitness level, and no more than 30 minutes of your total daily attention. Frank still does his protocol every day. He told me recently that he thinks of it as the counterweight to retirement. He said, "Sandra, retirement gave me all this sitting. This gives me back my legs. That is the trade I am willing to make." You can do this from your couch. No excuses. 5 minutes a day changes everything for your legs. I am Sandra Whitmore. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.